and welcome to the Starr Woman Show. It's a conversation that's going to open us up into exciting, exploring different perspectives to feminine power, to leadership, to what makes women thick and what makes women break down. Hopefully, it's also to share an interesting perspective all the way across the ocean from the US. I'm excited to have the pleasurable company of a very accomplished woman, prolific author, great researcher who's been working with the American Embassy again as a coach or trainer, and who shared some moments passing through, or you can say breezing through the country. And of course, we couldn't help but pull her in to pick her thoughts, the powerful thoughts she's been sharing with strong and leading women in the country. Help me welcome the great, very accomplished, noble woman, Dr. Avis Jones-Deweever. I hope I got that right.
Perfect.
Ooh, awesome. I deserve a clap.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for offering to talk to us. This is Ghana, and this is actually Ghana's greatest women listening to you and watching you. Awesome. Tell us, for the many of our audiences who do not know you, just give us a brief background to this great woman with all the accolades we can imagine.
So my name is Dr. Avis Jones-Deweever. I'm a political scientist by training. So I've spent many years doing research, and my area of focus is race, gender, and the economy. But beyond that, I'm a writer, as you mentioned, an author, an international speaker. I'm also a media commentator back home. I do a lot of political commentary. I like to say I'm a woman of many hats, but at the center of what I do is trying to make sure that Black women, not only here in Africa and in the United States, but all across the diaspora, have every opportunity that they can in order to live their greatest potential. So really, that's a lot of the work that I do.
That's a whole lot. I mean, that would take even decades.
Yeah.
Not to go into how old you are, though.
Decades.
That's enough, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, so thank you very much. I mean, I can't count all the rules, but one of them that stands out that I just want to pick on, it's your sort of connection with this whole continent.
Yes.
I remember you mentioned at the session we had that you even had to study was it experiences in the Republic of Congo?
Yes.
In writing one of your great books. And so it got me wondering, what is it is so exciting about the continent Africa that perhaps we haven't seen, that you have seen? What is it about us that's getting you so hooked onto us?
Well, what is there not to love? I mean, the people of Africa, number one, is what is so inspiring and motivating to me. It's such a beautiful, a strong and accomplished and brilliant people, such a resilient people. And at the bottom of it all is that I see a reflection of myself and of my family and of my children and friends everywhere where I go on this great continent. And so it makes me really understand at a very deep level that we are all connected, that we are one blood. And it's my belief that as one of us achieves, all of us achieves. And so it's my hope that we can both sort of move to higher heights together.
Definitely, and ignore this silly, or no, you can't ignore this silly question, but I try to answer it is to ask you, how many of our countries within the continent you've traveled to, apart from Ghana and Congo?
Right. I've done Tanzania twice. Okay. I've also gone to South Africa. And I'll next be going to Liberia within the next 24 hours.
Oh my goodness! Oh, yes. Great. So, what have been the experience? What stands out for you?
What stands out for me is I find a very significant contrast in some ways between the African woman's experience, particularly as it relates to balancing or sort of integrating home and work, as it relates to the African American woman's experience. So, for example, the African American woman's experience is very distinct from white women. Unlike our white female counterparts, Black women have always worked in America, obviously, because we're related to the whole chattel slavery experience. And so because of that sort of tragic background, it's normal for us, for both man and woman to work outside the home. And as a result of that, it is also normal for black men and black women to take on dual responsibilities inside the home. In fact, there's been a recent study that took a look at the degree to which men pitched in with housework in the United States. And what it found was that black men actually spend more time on housework than other men of other races within the nation. And so...
Hold it for a moment. I would want you to repeat that for my great audience there. That sounds really surprising.
Yeah.
You mean black African or black African American men?
Yes.
Or as in black men?
Yes.
Across the world?
Black men in America, specifically.
Wow.
So this was a study that specifically looked at the degree to which men in America across races contributed to household duties.
Wow.
And what they found was that black men contribute more to household duties than all other men.
What
they
sort of
also
household duties we're looking at?
Well,
Gets me curious.
you're like, give me some specifics, girl. I don't know if I believe that. Okay. So
It's
like
difficult to
the
know
basic
that.
things that have to get done every day, you know, like washing dishes, like cooking, like doing some light cleaning. They also found that black men actually spend more time with their children than do white men. So
Wow.
it's completely counter to a lot of stereotypes that they have about quote unquote absentee fathers, that people sort of conflate marriage rates with the degree to which men are actually involved with their children's in their children's lives. And in the African American community, one cannot assume that because a family is not united by marriage, that there aren't co-parenting arrangements that are and that involve both the man and the woman in terms of helping to raise that child. And so our reality there is a little different, and it's a little unique, not only unique in terms of being distinctive between the African and African American experience, but specifically unique within the American experience.
And that is very interesting to note. I am glad you're saying that it's very unique, because it sharply contrasts with what we have here, even though we also acknowledge that there are more men that are recently very supportive of their families and their wives. But to ask that, to what extent does that kind of arrangement empower women more in the U.S., for instance?
Yeah. So what that does, when men pitch in the home, it allows women to have the space to be able to pursue their professional goals, okay? Because otherwise it becomes very daunting if the burden is completely on women to go outside the home, contribute to the household financially, spend hours and hours and hours and hours at work, and then come home and be expected to do everything while the man lounges. If both of them have worked outside the home, put in the same number of hours practically, then it provides for a more sort of egalitarian relationship inside the home, where maybe one person always cooks and the other person's always washes dishes. You know, some sort of arrangement like that, so that the entire sort of responsibility of taking care of the household doesn't invariably fall on the woman just because she's a woman.
Okay, but I get that. But in our context, often one dominant excuse, or you say explanation for why women end up taking all the chores or taking care of all of the chores is because men predominantly have had to be the breadwinners, or they are out there taking care of the chores. But of course, this is evolving. Now we have the typical scene is that the men and the women are all out there working to fend for the families.
Yeah.
How or what sort of social system is being able to support that reality, that you have men more supportive, helping out in their homes than compared with them? I'm thinking beyond the mindset, which other system is being able to facilitate for that reality to come into being?
Yeah, it's coming to be because it's quite frankly never been our reality that black men have predominantly been the bread earner, while black women have been in the home taking care of the children and the house. We have always both worked. Obviously, under the institution of slavery, we both worked, and we weren't paid, but we both worked. After the emancipation, we still both worked. Even if that work for black women was raising white women's children, we worked outside the home. And so we've never really had this quote-unquote traditional home where the black woman was expected to be in the household, we've just never had that reality. And because we've grown up with sort of this dual reality of both partners working outside the home, then it has created a situation where it's less uncommon for black men to also help, because he knows that his wife or his significant other has worked just as long and just as hard as he has.
Okay, so now let me just pull you out of the U.S.
Yes.
and drop you in a typical home in Ghana, like in Accra right now. If you were faced with such a situation, I mean, looking at our cultural context and our social experience, how would you navigate your way out as a technique for us women in Ghana here to find our way out of this?
It is a challenge, right? Because these are traditions that are centuries old, and it's really hard to have a sudden shift when you have practices that have been in place for so long.
Exactly.
Right. However, I think that we also understand that we are in a point in history where women are experiencing more opportunities, right? And we also understand that as women are infused more into the labor market, that they're able to help their families, they're able to help their communities, and they're able to help the country rise as well. So it is a moment in time in which people are becoming more aware of the importance of making sure that women have greater opportunities outside the household, if that's what she chooses to do. And so I think part of this is beginning to sort of shift social norms by doing things like mothers raising their sons in the same way that they raise their daughters, so that their sons don't grow up to be totally dependent on women cooking all the time or taking care of household duties, that they are equipped with the same knowledge to do that too, so that they can pitch in the future. It's also around, quite frankly, women making decisions about who their partners want to be. As I mentioned, the best case scenario is that every woman gets to live the life that she chooses. No one should be forced to do something or not do something just because they're a woman. But if a woman chooses to work outside the home, I think one of the things that needs to be emphasized is that making the decision around your partner is one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life. You will make a decision to be partnered with someone who will either be a helpmate to you, be an encourager of your dreams, be someone that will be supportive of you in every sense of the word, or you will make a decision to be with someone who will sort of snatch your dreams away from you, who could potentially be an albatross around your neck, perhaps. So it's very important that women empower themselves to make very wise decisions when they decide to share their life with someone, so that they can make sure that they are connected with someone that will value them and value and support their dreams as much as they will do for their partner.
Exactly. I mean, it's so spot on. I personally think I've picked a lot, and I'm sure my audiences out there have picked a lot from this very smart tips you're sharing. But let's just digress a bit, come back to your life. You have achieved a lot, as a mother, as an author, as a researcher, as an analyst, media watcher, perhaps even media strategist, because you've been working a lot with the media. How have you been able to juggle, between all these roles and the expertise that is required of you? How have you done it?
Well, it's evolved over time. So I personally believe that in life we start off like a rosebud that's like tightly closed, and then as we grow up and we get more experiences and we meet new people, we slowly progress into full bloom. And what it takes, though, is for one to really understand that if you're interested in something, to have the faith in yourself to go out there and try. And what I found is that I haven't done all of that at the same time. It's just been sort of a natural evolution. I started with my degree in research. I decided not to go to university and be a professor. Instead, I decided to actually go into the real world and do that type of research in the political realm. That's my interest. From there, I began to sort of interact with the media. It kind of happened kind of naturally, because every time you release a new report, the media wants to know about it. So through that, I started to get into media. From that, I started to do more writing, not only for those reports, but also my own writing in terms of my book. And of course, that led to a lot of speaking. And so it's all sort of been a cumulative thing. It's about really allowing life to unfold and not be not over edit yourself in terms of possibilities. If you know that there's something out there that you are interested in pursuing, allow yourself the luxury of pursuing it.
it doesn't come that easy.
No.
For women, star women out there who are struggling with confidence, who are struggling with, measuring up to so many demon, ideals and norms. Many of them so far-fetched, stretched beyond any human realm. How do you rise up to that?
Yeah. I can't even take credit for it. I have to say that my parents and my grandparents were very strong influences on me from the time I was a little girl. And the beautiful thing about their influence is that they have shown me not only unconditional love, which every child deserves, but they've really sort of hammered in my head from my earliest memories that I was capable, that I could do it, that I was inferior to no one, and that really helps. I think another thing that helps, and this is very funny because we were just talking about guys, I was a tomboy growing up. So I used to always play with the boys. I was very competitive. I was a little rough and tumble. And so I think being in that space where at a very young age, I was acculturated to understand how boys and men compete and how they achieve, it kind of made me take on a little bit of those qualities where I'm less reserved. I feel comfortable being aggressive and expressing myself and believing that my voice has value, just as much value as any man, for example. I think both of those things have sort of shaped me in a way in which I just feel comfortable in my own skin. And also, I think the blessing of age eventually makes you feel comfortable in your own skin.
Into the decades,
that those decades come in handy. After a few decades, you start to say, I really don't care what anybody thinks.
No, you're not making me wonder. I think we need to guess. If not, then you really need to blow it out. What is the age?
Well, I have a big birthday coming up in August.
Oh my goodness. At least you give us just give us some clues.
Okay, it is the big 5.
Oh my God, yes, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Oh my goodness. 50.
Yeah, 50.
I mean, we have to learn some business tips, fashion tips here, good looking tips here. I mean, this is great. Yeah. Awesome. It's getting exciting. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will head into creating wealth, what it means to be economically empowered as a star woman. Is it a dream we should pursue at all? And what are the hurdles? Our guest is being able to get ahead of that. So definitely some techniques we need to learn from. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Star Woman Show. It's getting very exciting, and as usual, my guest is Dr. Avis Jones-Deweever. I got it right. Sounds a mouthful for me.
It is a mouthful.
But I got it.
I have to admit.
Awesome. So, yes, we want to talk about wealth creation. And you mentioned, for instance, at the session that economic empowerment for women means a lot. It's what can free our voices.
Absolutely.
It can open us up, open the space up for us to articulate who we are. Now, that subject is a bit funny though, because it's the issue about opportunity, it's also the issue about capacity and all of that. How have you worked? Because I know, reading about you, you've also been dealing with wealth creation as a topic, even training, dealing with the blacks, how to reduce the gap, the wealth creation gap. Exactly. So give us your ideas, the nuggets.
Yeah. So a lot of my work is around the racial wealth gap, and it really shows the degree to which, particularly in America, there is a huge gulf between the average wealth of white families and the average wealth of black families. And so a lot of the work that I do highlights that, but also talks about things that black families can do in order to improve their wealth. And really one of the greatest drivers of wealth in America is not only the traditional things that most people think about, which is home ownership, which is investing, those types of things, but really one of the biggest accelerators to wealth in America is owning a business. There's a big difference there between black business owners and those who are employees and their wealth. And so one of the things that I am very passionate about is making sure that people understand the importance and the freedom, the financial freedom that can be associated with entrepreneurship, and particularly making sure that Black women have the information they need to start and grow successful businesses.
Talking about which, I don't know how familiar you are with our experience when it comes to entrepreneurship on the continent, but it's really difficult. Even for the male entrepreneurs, it's an uphill task. Talk about access to credit, talk about skill and marketing support and all of that, access to markets and all of that. So it's really difficult even for women. Myself, I consider myself as an entrepreneur, and I don't even want to begin to tell you my challenges up till today, that I'm still at the micro level. I've been doing this for over a decade and I'm still at the micro level. How do you, I don't know how conversant you are about our challenges, but how do you break out of that this environment and break out and make it big?
It is a very particular challenge that you have right here on the continent, particularly as it relates to scaling. So I definitely understand this challenge of being sort of stuck in that micro business box, right? A lot of that, as you mentioned, is issues of access to capital. Sometimes I understand from speaking with people on the continent who work to support entrepreneurs is that oftentimes it could be that some businesses don't have sort of those basic precursors in place that are necessary for them to be able to receive funding. So for example, it's very important that businesses understand how to keep accurate records, be able to show the cash flow in their business, and what the revenue is, what the expenses are, what the profits are. All of that is very important so that you can be able to quantify how well you're doing for potential banks or investors. It could be that you're doing really well, but if you don't have just the quantitative evidence of what you're doing, it's very hard to get the investors that you need to really be able to get cash infusions in your business when it's time to grow. And I think that's one of the things that really stunts the growth of a lot of businesses. Even those businesses that, as I mentioned, are doing well and want to take it to the next level, if they need that access to capital to do that, they're going to need to have their books done. So they can show that.
Expensive here. I don't know if you know that. I mean, the rate of the interest rates, cost of borrowing, it's huge, and even cost of doing business. So sometimes you can get it right with those fundamentals, but still, it's just prohibitive going out there into the shark market to look out for capital. That is one. And then being able to move your business beyond these borders. Assessing even the continental market and then beyond the continent. Maybe you can talk about partnerships. I don't know how it works in your experience. That is really the key, and it's really about being able to make the right connections, get the right partners. At the end of the day, the saying goes, it takes teamwork to make the dream work, and it really does. If you're looking to find out how you can take your product and really scale it so that it can be available throughout the continent, maybe even overseas, then you need to figure out what sort of distributors can connect to, what sort of partnerships can I develop such that it will make financial sense for me to do so. Because as you mentioned, there are a lot of things to take into consideration when you're doing this. And so it really means that to some degree, you would need to research what opportunities are out there and then put yourself in environments where you can potentially make the right connections to begin to make that happen. So, it's both the skill of what you're doing, but it's also the connections that you're able to make to help make your dream really grow. And so that's for business, but not everybody who can go into business.
Right.
So for the Star woman out there who is not thinking business, how can they still be able to grow their income stream?
So, it's really about, I think, and what's really amazing to me, and one of the things that I admire about African women in particular, is that African women get out there and hustle anyway, every day, right? You see women selling their crafts, their goods, their food everywhere, every day. And so to me, it's really about doing what you need to do to get that extra cash. And I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. As I see it, I see evidence of this each and every day. I think the best thing that we can do as a society is to make sure that those women have, a safe and profitable space where they can do business and hopefully get some access to other individuals that can help them if they're interested in moving in other areas or growing in broader ways, that can maybe give them some training, giving them some access to other partners, maybe even see if they can match them with particular organizations that can help them flourish at an even broader scale.
Awesome. And so let's touch on, for instance, writing. You have been very successful and you've written great books, award-winning books. For the Starr woman out there thinking about starting that career, what are some of the techniques or tips you can share?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that writers write, so just start writing. And I have found that when I talk with people about this, they put a lot of pressure on themselves that it has to be perfect before they start. And so they end up struggling with this thing called writer's block, which to me is really, I understand sometimes it's hard to get going, but also it can be a bit of an illusion. Here's the thing. What the secret is that most people don't know is that the first draft is just that. It's the first draft, right? Don't put so much pressure on you. It is the draft. Whenever you're reading a book, trust and believe, that's probably like the 50th draft of that thing. So the secret is just to get something on paper. You're going to make it better each time you go through and revise it and edit it. That's where the real writing happens, okay? So don't put so much pressure on yourself that you have to write this masterpiece originally the first time you put pen to paper or you're typing on your computer. Just get that ugly first draft done and then take it from there.
And what are the financial prospects with writing? Top of your mind?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest decisions that someone would make, particularly if they're interested in writing a book, for example, is whether or not you want to go with a traditional publisher or whether you want to go with the self-publishing route. That seems to be the big decision that most people are making these days. If you go with a self-publishing route, I know that you will be able to make a larger proportion of profits per each book sold, but you'll have to be more aggressive in being out there and marketing the book, and then you'll have to take on the responsibility of getting that book distributed or getting a distribution deal if you actually want that book to be in bookstores. Otherwise, you can just have it appear online, for example, which is perfectly fine when people can just order it and it's shipped to them. However, if you're looking to go through a traditional publisher, then that involves going through the whole sort of book proposal process. If they like your book, they will write you in advance, okay? That means you get paid right off the top. But it also means that on the other end of the spectrum, you make less profit per book sold. So that's sort of the balance of that you want to make. Do you want to be able to get really just a few cents per book sold, but with the belief that maybe you can get a big advance, or do you want to sort of rely on your ingenuity in terms of getting your book out there and really pushing your book so that
which would you recommend?
I think that if you're someone with a huge platform and you have a lot of people who know you and you can sell a lot of books, you could probably get a really good book deal that could give you a significant advance that could make that worth your time. They can handle the distribution. However, for most people, self-publishing seems to be the way of the future, and I would definitely suggest that they look into that.
Especially for beginners, right?
Exactly.
Okay, now let's just quickly go into leadership and then we wrap up, because that is your forte as well. Share with us some leadership nuggets, especially for women. I was just trying to get hold of your summary of your writing on, is it the exceptional or how exceptional
black women lead.
How exceptional black women lead. And
yes.
I was wondering, was that just semantics, or you really meant, or what did you really mean by that title?
Yeah, it's very intentional. With that book, I interviewed over 70 black women leaders in America, although one was a black Brit. And these were women who had achieved at exceptional levels in corporate America as nonprofit leaders, as elected officials or other public servants, and as entrepreneurs. And each one of them, I interviewed them largely within the American context and asked them, how they were able to achieve those high levels of success while also navigating the challenges of both race and gender in America. And so basically I shared their wisdom and some of my experiences throughout that book with the hope that it could help sort of the next generation be able to get a heads up.
Just give us a bit of that. We don't have the book, but at least we have the writer here.
Yes.
So give us some of the smart tips based on your observations and through that writing.
Absolutely. So we've alluded to the first one previously. It starts with the leadership mindset. It starts with knowing that you have the capacity and the ability to lead. It starts with also being uncomfortable with where you are now. Like if you are satisfied with your current state, you're not going to put in the effort that it takes to move to that next level. So if you believe that you have the capacity to believe, if you know that you've been where you are long enough and you're ready to move up, then it's all about moving forward with what you have to do to make that happen. Secondly, it's about surrounding yourself with a team of people who are going to help you make that successful. People who have been there, done that before, who can help you navigate that space more accurately, and people who will just support you in every way, including supporting you at home, so you'll have the time and the space that you need to devote to your career to make it happen. And I guess thirdly, it's also about really knowing that, really you don't have to be perfect. I know that as women, we're under a lot of scrutiny when we get into leadership. I know that there are different standards for us than there is for men. I know that, as leaders, when we are stern, when we have high standards, when we have great aspirations, it's somehow received differently from us and often more negatively from us than it is from men with those same qualities. But the bottom line is, have faith in you and your ability to succeed, and when you have those outcomes that are positive, that come as a result of your efforts, then you will see that doors will continue to open up for you.
So finally, just tell us, how do you deal with criticisms as the lady boss or the boss lady?
Yeah,
you can call it. But after you've taken the challenge on and you've gone into the role, many times we're berated, we're misunderstood, judged wrongly, and all of that, and it can be so hard. It's like the world is all up against you.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you even believe your family is also, joined the critics. So how do you deal with that?
So the first thing I do personally is I consider the source. Okay. And that would even include family. Okay, I consider the source. There are certain people whom I respect, who I know have my best interest at heart, who I know are probably are giving me, in that context, constructive criticism because they see something that I can improve. Okay, if that's the case, I listen to what they're saying and I sort of inquire about it, and I make adjustments as it makes sense to make adjustment. All criticism isn't bad criticism if it's constructive criticism. And then there are those people who are, quite frankly, haters, right, which you completely ignore. And then there are those people who, for some reason, may feel threatened by you, may be jealous of you, may have some other motive in terms of why they are critiquing you. Look, if they're a family member, they're a family member. You can love them, but love them from a distance and not allow that to really penetrate your spirit. You know what I mean? But if there's someone whom you don't really know, you don't really have to spend a lot of time with, I kind of like let that roll off my back. We have to know not to give value to everything that anyone says. Consider the source, consider the motivation, and if it's something that seems as if it comes from a source that is not helpful for you, then you have to just let that rub it off your shoulders.
Develop the thick skin for
Exactly.
it. Thank you so much. On that note, I want to say a very huge thank you on behalf of all my Starr women out there. It's been awesome, very inspiring, insightful, the nuggets you've shared with us tonight. I'm very sure we're going to apply lots of it. I'm sure others will go into wardrobes, closets, waiting for the time we muster the courage to work around with them. So thank you once again. It's been a pleasure having you here.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thank you. So on that note, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed it. You enjoyed this talk. You take whatever you need to take. Of course, I would say you need to take everything, because everything was wholesome, and apply it. It's not just knowledge for knowledge's sake, but knowledge to be applied. And in that, you feel empowered. Thank you for spending this quality time with us. Hope to catch you again. Bye-bye from us. My name is Eyram. Bashan.